Magandang araw at magandang gabi po sa mga nakakapanood sa gabi at sa lahat po ng naaabot ng video na ito. Welcome po dito sa AMBO sa ating channel Avoy Mix Videos. Ngayon po, ito pong ating tatalakayin ngayon ay tungkol sa pag-aarmas ng United States sa Pilipinas. Pero parang may mali, ano? Kasi tayong mga Pilipino, binibili po natin yan. Bumibili po nga tayo sa Korea o sa iba pang bansa. Ibig sabihin, inaarmasan natin ang ating mga sarili o inaarmasan ng mga Pilipino ang Pilipinas. Yung mas maganda po siguro yun. At yung support po ng US yun. Kasi kung tutusin, pag nakapasok po ang gera sa kanila ay mas malala at ayun ang ayaw ng US. Kagaya nung nangyayari ngayon dito sa Russia. Nakapasok na po ang gera sa loob ng Russia imbis na nasa labas. So, para mas maganda, panoorin na po natin itong video dahil mahaba-haba po ito. Kaya magbigay po tayo ng ating komento mamaya po sa tuwing may makikita tayo sa video na ito. Ito po ang video mula kay ASEAN Analytics.
The Philippines wants to upgrade its military. With U.S. mid-range missiles and 40 advanced fighter jets. Two senior security officials said during the recent congressional budget hearing, spending at least $33 billion as it modernizes its defenses in the face of growing regional tensions, with China as the biggest adversary. The military wants to acquire more cutting-edge weaponry, Armed Forces Chief Romeo Bronner told reporters, hours after Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro announced the Philippines was reviewing offers to buy more weapons. The armed forces of the Philippines are wanting to get more of the latest weapon systems. That includes the mid-range capability, Bronner told a joint media conference with U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander Samuel Paparo in the northern...
Stop po muna natin, no? Kung titingnan nyo, talagang tinodo-todo na, no? Hindi lang pala Typhoon missile yung dineploy nila. May Tomahawk, o may sari-sari pa na mid-range, no? At siguro, mas marami rin itong short range, no? So, yung bilang, hindi po nila sinabi kung gaano karami yung dinala nila dito sa Pilipinas. Sige po, tuloy natin.
City of Baguio. The U.S. Mid-Range Capability Missile Launcher System, which can fire various missiles, including the SM-6 supersonic missile, with a range of about 450 kilometers, and the Tomahawk cruise missile, with a maximum range of 2,500 kilometers. The Tomahawk missiles can reach the Chinese mainland from the Philippines, although they may also be used to target ships. The SM-6 is a shorter-range multi-purpose missile that can target both naval and air forces. Both have the potential to hamper China's air defense systems in the opening salvos of a potential conflict in the South China Sea, enabling the U.S. Navy to move in large warships thereafter. Both the Philippines and ally the United States are preparing for what could be the largest joint military exercises next year, Paparo said, as security engagements between the two nations have increased to counter what they perceive.
So, saglit lang po, no? Ito po yung sinasabi ko na ang Amerika po ay laging handa. Hindi po nila ina-underestimate yung mga nagcha-challenge sa kanila kasi gusto nila yung pagka sumabak sila sa isang gera ay sure na 100% yung panalo nila at wala silang magiging problema sa loob ng bansa nila habang nakikipaggera sila. So, tuloy po uli natin.
Perceive as China's growing assertiveness. As part of the United States deterrence strategy against China, aside from boosting its navy, the United States also strengthened its interoperability with its allies in Indo-Pacific. With this, the United States keeps mid-range missile systems strategically stationed in the Philippines as tensions with China rises. The U.S. has no immediate plans to withdraw a mid-range missile system deployed in the Philippines, despite Chinese demands, and is testing the feasibility of its use in a regional conflict. The Typhoon system, which can be equipped with cruise missiles capable of striking Chinese targets, was brought in for joint exercises earlier this year, stationed strategically in northern Luzon, near Taiwan, and adjacent in hotly contested waters of South China Sea. The Southeast Asian archipelago, Taiwan's neighbor to the south, is an important part of U.S. strategy in Asia. and would be an indispensable staging point for the military to aid Taipei in the event of a Chinese attack and a strategic location to deter China.
So, mukhang todo na to, no? Talagang gumagastos ang Amerika para tulungan mga mga Pilipino o ang Pilipinas. No, kasi tingin ko ano to may benefits naman to, may return of investment kumbaga sa kanila 'yan, ano. Tutulong sila pero bandang huli malaki yung kanilang magiging pakinabang. Pero kung tutusin kita mo ano, talagang handa silang gumastos, ano. Ganyan kayaman yung Amerikano. Tuloy
Its
natin.
hegemonic ambition in the West Philippine Sea. China and Russia have condemned the first deployment of the mid-range missile system to the Indo-Pacific, accusing Washington of fueling an arms race. China's foreign ministry said on Thursday it was very concerned about the plan to keep the system in place near Taiwan. Chinese spokesperson Lin Jian said it seriously threatens the security of regional countries and intensifies geopolitical confrontation. The deployment, some details of which have not been previously reported, comes as China and U.S. defense treaty ally the Philippines clash over parts of the hotly contested South China Sea. Recent months have brought a series of sea and air confrontations in the strategic waterway. Philippine officials said Filipino and U.S. forces continue to train with the missile system, which is on the northern island of Luzon, facing the South China Sea and is close to the Taiwan Strait.
At dito, kagaya ng sinasabi ko, no, yung mga eroplano, hindi po natin yung binili sa US, ano po natin yung binili sa Korea po, ano. Kaya yun nga, inarmasan natin yung sarili natin. So, pondo po ng Pilipinas yan. So, balik tayo.
The U.S. Army flew the Typhoon, which can launch missiles including SM-6 missiles and Tomahawks with a range exceeding 1,600 kilometers to the Philippines in April in what it called a historic first and a significant step of Philippines and U.S. partnership. A satellite image taken on last week by Planet Labs, a commercial satellite firm, and reviewed by Reuters showed the Typhoon is currently stationed at the Laoag International Airport in the northwesternmost province of Ilocos Norte. Philippines and U.S. senior government officials said there were no immediate plans to withdraw it. If ever it will be pulled out, it is because the objective has been achieved and it may be brought back in after all the repairs or the construction would have been done. There was strategic value for the Philippines in keeping the system to deter China. The United States and the Philippines want to give China sleepless nights. The U.S. has been amassing a variety of anti-ship weapons in Asia, as Washington attempts to catch up quickly in an Indo-Pacific missile race in which China has a big lead, Reuters has reported. Although the U.S. military has...
Kung matuloy kaya ang gerang ito, aabot kaya sa kalupaan ito o dun lang sa dagat, no? Kasi ano ito ang Amerika nagsubok na sila rito, no, sa ganitong klase ng gera sa dagat kasi nagkaroon sila ng gera dito sa mga Haponon dito sa Pacific, ano, at napakaraming barko po yung nasira dyan at lumahok sa digmaan.
has declined to say how many will be deployed in the Indo-Pacific region. More than 800 SM-6 missiles are due to be bought in the next 5 years, according to government documents outlining military purchases. Several thousand Tomahawks are already in U.S. inventories, the documents showed. China has denounced the deployment of the Typhoon several times, including in May when Wu Qian, spokesperson for China's defense ministry, said Manila and Washington had brought huge risks of war into the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin in June cited the deployment when announcing his country would resume production of intermediate and shorter-range nuclear-capable missiles. Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo in July assured his Chinese counterpart the presence of the missile system in his country posed no threat to China and would not destabilize the region. China has fully militarized at least 3 of several islands it built in the South China Sea, which it mostly claims in full despite a 2016 arbitral ruling that backed the Philippines, arming them with anti-ship and anti-aircraft missiles, the U.S. has said. China says its military facilities in the Spratly Islands are purely defensive and that it can do what it likes on its territory. As such, the Philippines, with the support of the United States, could say same thing, that Manila is just strengthening its defense.
Ang galing nitong si Asian Analytic, ano? Nakakakuha siya ng information, ano? At siguro may contact ito sa military at or meron siyang source na kung saan member siya doon at tapos nagbibigay sa kanya ng mga information kasi very detailed talaga yung kanyang mga information. Napakaganda po ng kanyang mga inilalabas na video. Ituloy po natin.
Posture, and it can do what it likes on its own territory. As security engagements between the two nations have increased to counter what they perceive as China's growing assertiveness. It plans to spend at least 1.9 trillion pesos, around $33.74 billion, to modernize and boost its military's external defense capabilities, which could include buying the 40 jets, Teodoro earlier said during a congressional hearing on his department's budget. He declined to name the countries that had submitted tenders for the fighter jet model it plans to acquire, adding, "The bidding is a secret process right now, but the Philippine government are continuing to review tenders that are acceptable." The armed forces of the Philippines are also investing in other deterrent capabilities that are deterrence, not necessarily multi-role fighters. To fund the jets, which could cost between 300 to 400 billion pesos, around 5.3 to 7.1 billion dollars, the government is looking at reasonable financing schemes, including tapping.
So, ito yung ano, no, yung palita ko kasi yung tungkol dito sa mga jet fighter, no, yung F-35 nila, pinakamarami daw naka-deploy dito sa Pilipinas eh. Siguro hindi lang namin media. Pero yung support talaga todo. Tsaka yung missile, yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, hindi natin alam kung gaano karami yan. At yung tungkol naman sa nuclear warhead, wala tayong balita. Pero malamang sa malamang, meron
Syndicated
yan.
loans from private lenders. Military Chief Bronner had previously said the Philippines needed faster and more lethal multi-role jet fighters on top of its South Korean FA-50S. Philippines Department of National Defense aims to award tenders as soon as possible as long as the financial requirements are met. In April, the United States deployed its intermediate-range missile system in the northern Philippines during military drills, angering China, which said its presence brought huge risks of war into the region. The missile, which remains in the Philippines, was not fired during the exercises, but was shipped to test the feasibility of transporting the 40-ton weapon system by air. The Philippines has been embroiled in frequent run-ins at sea and on air with China in the West Philippine Sea. The deployment of the system, which provides a land attack range as far as 2,500 kilometers and altitude out to 108,000 feet, has marked a substantial boost in capability in a region where China has been taking a stronger position in recent years. The U.S. Army's new ground-based launcher, capable of supporting Tomahawk cruise missiles and SM-6, appeared for the first time in the Indo-Pacific in a deployment to the northern Philippines, near Taiwan, for military drills. Mid-range capability, also known as the Typhoon weapon system, is a Lockheed Martin design that takes the naval Mk.41 vertical launch system and modifies it for land-based operations. These launchers form a core component of the U.S. Army's new multi-domain task forces, which were created to address the wide range of threats faced by Russia and
Grabe, no, meron bukod kaya dun sa mga EDCA site o yung mga tinayuan nila ng mga kampo ay meron kaya mga sikreto pa dyan na base militar ng Amerika na hindi binabalita sa media o tinatawag nating black media. Meron po kayang ganon. Ano?
China. The U.S. Navy's deployment of new extremely long-range air-to-air missiles in the Indo-Pacific could erase China's advantage in aerial reach, is part of an intensifying focus on projecting power amid high tensions in the region. The AIM-174B, developed from the readily available Raytheon SM-6 air defense missile, is the longest-range such missile the United States has ever fielded in the Indo-Pacific and was officially acknowledged in July. Supporting the Philippines in case with war with China and Taiwan in an invasion would pull the Navy in even closer. The AIM-174B changes that equation, keeping PLA carrier hunting aircraft out of firing range and even endangering their planes attacking Taiwan. That increased the likelihood the United States would get involved in a major conflict in the region. The big thing is that it lets the United States
Kasi kung tutuusin, dahil hawak natin yung pinaka-land, gayon din naman sa Taiwan, nasa andun sila sa land, eh, anong laban ng barko rito kung merong land na ganyan, ano?
push in a little bit further into the South China Sea during a conflict, and it's going to potentially change Chinese behavior because China hold large, slow, unmaneuverable aircraft and other military asset at greater risk. For decades, the United States' advantage in stealth fighters, first with the F-117 and then with the F-22 and F-35, meant that missiles such as the AIM-120 were all that was needed. The U.S. military also leaned into developing the AMRAAM as a cheaper alternative to a new missile, drastically improving its performance over decades. In recent years, bilateral activities have shifted to include higher-end drills, such as coastal defense, amid the Philippine military's shift from internal security operations to archipelagic coastal defense. From northern Luzon, located along the first island chain separating mainland Asia from the open Pacific, is supposedly the area to which the system has been deployed for the military exercise. Typhoon's missile system could cover not only the entire Luzon Strait but also reach the Chinese coast and various People's Liberation Army bases in the South China Sea. In the face of escalating maritime tension with Beijing in the South China Sea, the Armed Forces of the Philippines has secured the lion's share of the approved $35 billion AFP modernization budget, signaling a notable recalibration in defense allocations. A part of its assets recalibration, the Philippines will acquire multi-role fighter jet to supplement the country's air defense network. While the government has not identified the final choice for the fighter jet, the Swedish firm Saab's JAS 39 Gripen was reportedly among the top choice. While the government has indicated its choice for the Swedish JAS 39 Gripen, the American F-16 Fighting Falcon remains a top pick for many Philippine officials. When procured,
So, iniisip ko lang na parang kung ang tirada nila ay by land na dahil ay nakakatakot po talaga yon. Kung mag-aatake tayo papunta sa land ng China o aatake ang Taiwan papunta sa land ng China tapos aatake ang China papunta sa land natin, ay mukhang ang pangyayaring ito ay hindi lang basta sa gera sa karagatan, ano? Malaki ang posibilidad na humantong ito sa gera sa kalupaan. Tingnan po natin ulit.
these fighters likely will be based at Basa and other EDCA sites throughout the country. For Basa's improvements, the U.S. Air Force claims that these investments are necessary to sustain efforts to help train and modernize their Philippine counterparts. And while budgetary documents state the Philippine Air Force is currently conducting modernization efforts at Basa, it does not have aircraft parking apron space sufficient for United States aircraft. Previously reported that the Marine Corps deployed unarmed MQ-9A Reaper drones to Basa to provide reconnaissance and surveillance in support of the development of intelligence sharing between U.S. and Philippine forces. While the number of drones deployed to Basa was not specified, it should be noted that containers used to transport the drones can be seen behind the base's Air Defense Alert Command hangars via open-source imagery. Both countries have claimed that EDCA aids Philippine military modernization through the construction of new infrastructure and more training activities with U.S. forces. Investment into the bases has also stepped up in recent years amid increasing tensions between Manila and Beijing over disputes in the South China Sea, particularly around 2nd Thomas Shoal and the resupply of its Philippine Marine garrison. Constructed shortly before World War II and used by U.S. and Imperial Japanese forces throughout its history, Basa today is home to the Philippines' only fighter squadron of 12 Korean-made FA-50PH Fighting Eagles. These fighters form the core of the country's limited air defense capability and train with their U.S. counterparts every year. In 2023, these jets trained for the first time with F-22 Raptors, marking the first time a U.S. Air Force fifth-generation fighter arrived in the country. With Manila moving into its next phase of military modernization, the Philippine Air Force is expected to finally select a jet for its multi-role fighter program. Investing in the country's military modernization is crucial amid the evolving security challenges, particularly the heightened territorial tension in the West Philippine Sea. The Defense Department emphasized the need to prepare the AFP's capabilities as the country shifts to boosting its external defense posture. The Philippines must have to look at defense and security not as an expense but as an investment, and must never stop investing in the defense and security of the country until a credible posture is achieved. Assessing if the modern equipment would be sufficient for the country's needs is critical. The AFP earlier emphasized its seriousness in addressing the current external security challenges with modern equipment. Thus, it began implementing Horizon 1 and Horizon 2 in 2013 to 2018 and 2018 to 2022, respectively. Horizon 3, or the final phase of the AFP modernization program, will run this year until 2028.
So yun po, no, napakaganda ng video na ginawa nito ng Asian Analytics. Salamat po sa Asian Analytics. At meron tayong nako-comment mga ganitong video, no. At panalangin natin na ito ay hindi na magamit para sa isang digmaan, ano. At display na lang sila diyan, ano, para warning, no. So hanggang sa muli po, maghahatid po tayo sa inyo ng mga bagong balita tungkol dyan sa Asian Analytics. Ito po ang AMB, hanggang sa muli.